Very good morning to you guys. Hope you're doing well. You're having a nice weekend. The CFTC website reported some delays in their reporting, and so much that they had a cyber attack, and then so we had the delay in the COT data. There is still a little bit of an issue with the website, in so much as that we've got some palm oil data discrepancy and some US real estate index discrepancy, but we're not too worried about those two. We're more interested in the foreign exchange market, and we can how to use that data to aid us in our positioning. So, albeit the data is now old, it's quite old, to be honest, and I don't know whether or not we're going to get caught up in that data, whether or not they'll release that data. There'll be so next week it will be more updated as opposed to a month old data. Next week they might have caught up. I'm not sure how they're going to do it, or we're just going to have a month delay, which I don't think that's going to be the case, because we were on a weekly basis. We can't go from a weekly basis to a monthly basis. So I assume there'll be a catch up on that data. So next week it won't be a month prior. It'll probably be 3 weeks. Old data. Then the following week will be 2 weeks old data, and then the month's time we'll be back to the weekly data. So although it's old right now, it's the best that we can get, and it's the most updated data we can get. All right, so just a little bit of information there. So it's a great website to bookmark, and if you wanted to download the data, you can come here, and then you get the CSV file, which then you can use into Excel. But fortunately for us, Christian has designed a bespoke tool, and we can look at the charts, which is really awesome. And so remember that we have got looking at old data. So as we closed out the month, Euro FX was strong, and we actually broke above the high. The dollar rose as well, but slightly, but the Euro FX was quite strong. Okay, so let's look at the yen. And hopefully next week we'll be catching up on the data. Yen increased as well, but we were negative. We're still below zero. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. There's potentially UJ sell set up coming up if we get across. Let's take Euro off, and we'll put on Aussie. Aussie's well, we were in ascendancy, but we are negative. So we went from minus 33,000 to minus 30,000. So it's an increase there of 3,000 contracts. Still below zero though. And so let's look at the pound. The pound had some good data recently, some good PMI data and good retail sales as well. The pound's in ascendancy, and it overtook the yen. So look for pound yen longs, but they're both very close. So ideally, you want a nice crossover. Look, it's almost like it's correlating in a way, isn't it? So you've got to be careful, pound yen. Ideally, you'd have a yen come down strongly and the pound come up strongly, but they're not really getting a very strong crossover. Take pound off. Look at CAD. Okay, so CAD yen, that's a decent one for a short. The CAD is weakened against the yen there, but then we went from sideways minus 30 to minus 30. Right, so 600 contracts difference, 500, 600 difference. So slight increase, but very, very subtle. Take CAD off. Look at gold. Gold. So we have to wait and see, won't we? When the data is released on Friday, we'll have to see this. This should have probably ticked down. We had a big surge, and normally things zigzag. Right, we don't have like lines, straight lines. Very unusual. So I think this will be a zigzag down on Friday. And then we'll look at the Kiwi and then the Swiss. And New Zealand dollar, we broke about above that range. In fact, you can probably say we hit that resistance, and now it could be a turncoat support. Was resistance, go right, bounced off that. So interesting. If the dollar weakens, Kiwi strengthens, that's going to be an NU long signal. Okay. and then off, and then Swiss franc on. And we are ranging on the Swiss franc. And also, just lastly, before I close the video, is that you can look at any permutation that you want. You can just click the boxes, and perhaps you're really interested in the pound, I don't know, pound Aussie maybe, or something like that. And then, you can look for trade ops there. You don't have to look at the dollar crosses. You don't have to look at the yen crosses. You can look at any permutation, euro, CAD. For example, so there, it's quite a strong crossover. So just a little heads up there, and whether or not on Friday we're going to get some data that's more recent, and then the week after it's going to be even more recent, and finally we'll be back to weekly data releases, because the monthly is too old really, but it's the best that we can get, and it is what it is. So I wish you a good day. I wish you a lovely Sunday, and it's really sunny in the UK, so I'm going to go out there and get some sun, and I wish you a nice weekend, and I'll speak to you guys tomorrow. Hi, good morning. Hope you had a good weekend. Looks like we might be reversing a little bit on the S&P and on indices, generally speaking. You can see how we are green on the indices, but the S&P and US 30 are red. But it looks like they might be going towards buy, and I'll show you what I mean. And so we want this to come down in order to become a buy. Okay, so ideally, if it does fall, we'd welcome it to fall, because it would convince the bears that we were going to fall, and of course by doing so that will then come down, and then we can go back into buy, and then the US indices will join the European indices towards buy. So even if it falls, that might be a welcome thing, because we need that to come down. We don't want the retail guys long, which they currently are. See, they went long here, and they've remained long since here. So 4040-ish. You can see how we flip bias up there. I guess they like their round number, and they thought they'd go long because we were quite far above 4,000, and they've held on since. So we want this to come down ideally. Of course, if you're bullish this risk, you want it to come down. But if you're bearish risk, you don't mind it where it is. So ideally that comes down a little bit. And of course, if this pumps, then the dollar's going to weaken because of its correlation to its safe haven status. Bit of buy, like S&P did. It was just very subtle, incredibly sideways and subtle. Likewise here, and that's all there's to be said. You want it to come down, so in order for it to pump, tax is absolutely bonkers. They sold it, and we got the buy trigger there. And it's pumping, so that's what it is. There's nothing to be commenting on there. Just be careful with this, because it moves a lot very suddenly, and it can probably do a lot of destruction, or it can pay you very well, depending on how you're positioned. It's very uncertain what was going to happen, but we guess we could kind of predict that it was going to continue down, because you can see the momentum behind it. We were decreasing. That itself is bullish as we went into the London Open, and then they really sold it. Pump. Gold, I think we're going to make a buy, and then if so, then we're looking at 1807 for support. So wait for the crossover, then wait a bit of time, and then just to wait, ensure you've had a good crossover before you enter, and then that's going to be your stop, 1807. So we can come back to that tomorrow and see how that performed. It might break it, but at least your stop is fairly tight. 1811, 1807. It's not really going to break your bank, but it's important to know where your exits are. It's absolutely critical. That's interesting. Euro USD there. So 105.32. That's going to be your stop loss. If they continue to sell it, then great. Then potentially this might be like a bottom here. Now I'll show you the bubbles actually. Well, they've gone long on dollar yen, so resistance at 136.40. Now the thing is with the bubbles, they're quite bunched up, and right, actually the USD is weakening against the euro, pound and CAD. The dollar was over here. If it continues over here, then we'll be mixed. If it continues, then we're going to go into strong sell. Yen is going to be worth noting, so be careful with that. And I just want to show you the euro kiwi, because our trade is the kiwi CAD, and I think this potentially still got good resistance above, so this might boost the kiwi a little bit, and then we can maybe just look at the dollar kiwi CAD. Right, so we've got some resistance there, but we see how we pumped. I'm not really sure why. Have to look left. Maybe there's some stuff here. So we have to be careful, and this is just a hypothetical trade of the day. See, we have got supports, so perhaps it's looking left, and if you put the volume profile on, it'll probably be a big volume node there. So yeah, we've got to be careful, and it's a big move. Yeah, it's a fairly 2-pip move to resistance, so you could look to short up here at 84.02, but it's just a hypothetical trade of the day. We're not going to actually record this on the sheet because I'm wary about the kiwi. It's quite extreme and it's on its own, so we might see a reversal, and we're going to see a lot of chop down here, and potentially the dollar is going to weaken, but we need to see risk on for that, which we kind of covered on the indices. So if the dollar does soften, then this can probably pump a little bit, and likewise, and then it maybe by the end of the day will be green on the indices. So that's today's video. I'm going to do a Patreon video now. Remember to trade safely, and I'll speak to you guys soon.